This is the inaugural podcast of Julia Rambles. I'm Julia Cosby, and today I'm talking with songwriters Rudy Wood and Martin Bolinger. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hear that ghost train rolling. I hear that ghost train rolling. Ghost train, ghost trains are rolling.
It's great to have you guys and talk about this. The first thing I want to ask you is, Rudy, when did you first start writing songs?
I was probably about 20 years old. This would have been 88 or 89 as a student in college. And I think the first song I remember writing that we could probably still pull out of the archives is a song called Peace Girl, about this chick that I used to pass on my bike every day when I was riding over to the personal finance class in the economics building. She was always coming out and I was always going in, and she always wore this peace symbol medallion around her neck. She had this long, flowing brown hair and really super cool looking blue eyes, and I just thought she was amazing.
That's a great story.
Peace Girl.
Yeah, we should dig that out completely. So, Mark, what was the very first song that you wrote?
It's a song called "Leave It to You, Leave It to Me," and it's a weird little song. I could play it for you sometime, but it just there's no real chorus, there's no bridge, it's just kind of verse. It's a funny song. I mean, not lyrically, but I've played it for people and they're like, "Man, that's an interesting song. That has no semblance to to the way songs are typically written."
Right.
But I didn't know what I was doing. I just needed to. Anytime I want to learn to do something, I write a song, and so I had those chords. It was not long after I learned how to play a few chords, so I had the E minor down and the G down and the D down, and it's like, all right, I need to practice those, but I don't like to practice, and so I just wrote that song so I could just keep playing it.
No, I don't tell anybody, but it's hard for me to sit down and practice, and then when I get into it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. I should have done this. Absolutely.
I play all the time.
Right.
People would call it practice, but I am bad about practicing things. I want to practice songs.
I get that completely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was your very first, if the very first song you wrote isn't in your canon as something you're still performing, what would you consider the first songs that you wrote that you keep and you continue to perform to this day, Rudy?
The very first one that I wrote that we still play, that's going to be, I'm trying to think of which came first. It's either going to be 3 o'clock in the morning or I'm Left All Alone. Those are all written about the same time.
I like I'm Left All Alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are both really good songs. What about you, Mark?
I think of what we're playing now, the oldest one is probably Ghost Train. I was thinking about that the other day, and I'll bet if I looked through my book, I'd be like, oh, I forgot that one was even earlier. But Ghost Train is definitely one of the earlier songs that I wrote that we definitely still play.
Right. We're based out of southern New Mexico, and we call ourselves Three Rivers. That was a thought that I had. There's a landmark here called Three Rivers. There's 3 songwriters just came together and started playing together. So I thought that one up on my, at some point. I'm sure a bunch of other people have thought of that too. And we've had a pretty good year so far. It's the middle of 2018, and we're learning each other's music, and I've been playing with Rudy Wood actually since 2016, early, the turn of the new year, in fact. So of all the songs that I played with Rudy, and I know quite a few of them now, I think my favorite, I'm torn between Old Yellow Chevrolet and You're Just Not From Texas, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite of one of your own songs?
Yeah, I think it would be a tie between those two.
That's easy. What about you, Mark? What is your...
Of my own?
Mm-hmm.
Backwoods, probably. I really think that song is, especially since you two are playing it now, it's taken on a whole new dimension with your vocals in the background, and that song means a lot anyway, and I really like the way it's coming out.
Right. I like the way it sounds too. So when you guys are writing, and then I'll ask each one of you this, when you're writing a song, do you have a specific form or a way that it comes when you get the idea first in your head for something that you think could be a good song? And is it the same thing that you do every time, like you hear a line in your head and it won't go away and you've got to sit down and work it out? Or is there something else that happens? Rudy?
Sometimes I get a topic in mind that I want to write a message about, which was the instance for Fort Hood Forevermore.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked on that song until I got the message that it put together that I wanted. Sometimes it happens when I have a phrase come to mind, as with This Chamber Now. I just woke up one morning with Steve Earle's voice in my head going, "They're rolling me into this chamber, boys. They're rolling me into this chamber," or something like that. And that turned into that song. And then sometimes, and that was the same with the song called Endless Arkansas. Had that phrase Endless Arkansas in my mind. And so that came to being that way. And then sometimes it just happens with a chord progression. You know, you do a chord progression and you think, man, that sounds like a good song. And then you give it a voice, and usually for me, it's if I'm making something up from scratch that didn't come to me like the others, I hear someone else's voice in my head singing it. Like there's that song, Like a Moth to a Flame.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time I was writing that, I kept hearing Clinton Black's voice in my head. And I know how you love Clint Black.
I like Clint Black a lot. Anyway, that's cool. And what about you, Mark? Is there a way that a song comes when it's coming to you?
Not generally. I write lots of lyrics down. I have just pages and pages of lines, and when I get I'll have a bunch of lines, but a lot of times when I get like the title or like when Backwoods, that was, Dreaming in the Backwoods, and I had that, and I was like, oh, so what's that about? And then I'm thinking, well, we spent all that time when we were kids at my grandparents' house, and then what's that about? And then, so then once I start, if I have a few lyrics, then I can start playing with the chords, and once I have a little bit of music, I just start singing, and the words will fit the music, and then it's just working. It's just work, and you do the work, and you come up with everything. So there's a lot of them come from lyrics first, and then sometimes I'm just in the guitar room just playing around, getting ready to play a song, and I'll stumble on a chord progression, and that's happened a few times, not as often, but there'll be a chord progression, and I'll be like, oh man, that's kind of cool. And I'll look at those sheets of lyrics, and I'll start singing something, and all of a sudden that comes about, where you've got you start almost with the music, but it almost always I've never had like all the music done, and then punched in a bunch of lyrics, and I've rarely had all of the lyrics done like a poem and then put it to music. Mm-hmm. It's always got to be fiddled with.
Mm-hmm. When I get something in my head, it's usually a line with the music. And so I get it written down first, and maybe get the chords out real quick if that happens. And then I will work consciously on the rest of the lyrics. And sometimes I'll let that stew a day or two before I go back to it. And then I revisit the chords, and sometimes they seem alien and strange to me. Like, no, that's not what I hear anymore. And so the music may end up changing over the course of what I first heard as the line in my head, but I have all the lyrics down. Usually when something's in my head, I just get it out. I'm able to sit down and write out all lyrics, but I do have fragments. Like in my notebook, I keep a little notebook, and there'll be like one or two verses, and that's it. That's all that happened in that day, and they're out there floating around. Or like a chorus or two lines may come up. That's out there. That's floating around. Mm-hmm. And once or twice, and I haven't done this often, I will pull disparate lyrics written at different times together if they kind of have a similar theme, and I'll sit and write the music to it every now and then a song comes out that way, but usually the lyrics all come first for me, and then the music. So as far as the songwriting part of it for you guys, how many songs do you have in your personal library right now, Rudy?
That are finished and ready to play, that I would play in public.
That's
Got
the
a bunch that I wouldn't play
that's
in
the
public.
key, right?
Uh-huh.
But no, I mean even the ones you wouldn't play, like everything you've gotten done from start to finish.
I don't know, maybe 35, maybe
Okay.
40.
I
Somewhere
keep
around.
track of mine. I have a whole list. I've got 49.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I have like somewhere in the range of 25 right now, that since I started writing, and 4 of them I'd never play in public, easy.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of them I played in public at one point, but I'd no longer play in public. Just because it's a moment that I gotta get back to, like the song Trainwreck. I gotta get back to it. I haven't. We haven't visited that one since 2016.
Yeah.
That was one of Rudy's favorite
Yeah,
cities, liked of
absolutely.
mine. Which is, it's definitely a country bluegrass song for sure. Do you guys struggle with dry periods where you're worried that you'll never write a song again, and it starts to really grind on you, and weeks or months go by and nothing gets written, and then all of a sudden something happens and a song comes out, and convince yourself that you are going to write another song, I guess, because I've had those moments now. I don't know, it's scary.
I don't feel that as much anymore because I've been writing fairly regularly, and I found over time, I used to think that a lot, and then I'd get paranoid, and I would just actively. One time I just actively worked on one. I just said, "This is it. I haven't had anything. I'm going to work on it," and I didn't have anything, and Coming Back came out of that.
Well, that's a great song.
Yeah, I worked on it. I mean, I worked on that song. That song did not come easy. There was a lot going on. The way I play it, it's intricate in its own way, and the lyrics, I was not happy with some of it, and the chord progression wasn't quite right when I got to the bridge, and I just needed a lot of time. But I needed to prove to myself that I could work it. So that's kind of a song I forced, and it came out fine. I'm not likely to do that. I don't like to force things. But the more I've written, the more I realize that if I could go in there now and say I'm going to write a song and start working on something, and something would come. And whether it turns out great or whether it's something I'm going to end up really playing, that's another thing, depending on how much I want to work on it, and I'd run it by people and see what they think once I got to that point where you feel like it's almost finished. But I've kind of figured out that I think anyway I can sit down at any given time and start something and get something to happen.
Were you, Rudy?
I've always been able to rely on the muse,
Right.
but I'm going through one of those dry spells now. I've been months and months and months without any kind of. I mean, I've had little snippets of inspiration, little phrases that pop into mind, and they're all written down.
Right.
And so for the past, I don't know, year or so, I've just got page after page after page after page after page after page after page of a line or two.
Right. I'm dealing with that too.
I'm like,
But then you're going to end up writing 3 or 4 songs all at once
Well,
at some point when you get some
Right.
time.
I hope, but you do.
You
You
will.
get to the point where you go like, am I ever gonna do this again? Am I dried up, washed out?
Is that because you don't have as much time to just physically sit down and do it, or is
Right.
it because you are truly in a rut?
No, I think that's true, because when my wife and girls, if they ever go away, like there were periods of time when they would all go to my mom and dad's for like spring break, or they would all go over there for a week at a time in the summer when I was still working, or they would all go over there for some part of the Christmas break. And during those breaks from normal everyday home life, I would write through. All of this, it would just come gushing out.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. That's what it sounds like you need is time more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a writer's retreat.
Yeah.
Like go take your tent up to the woods and your guitar and see what happens and just hang out.
And I think that's why I had so much, like a lot of the songs that we play now came during a period of time when I was either in Iraq or right after I came back from Iraq when I wasn't working and they were all going during the day to school. And,
Yeah, I wrote, what's funny, I wrote Henry's song last November after he my cat. I wrote a song about my cat passing away. It's a sweet song, and I ended up writing that from the heart, actually, and it came right out all in one fell swoop. But the song I'm the One, which was kind of like my girly country song, was more like the thing I had to sit down and force the effort. And that was like a Sunday morning. I just got my notebook out and sat for 2 hours and forced my writing. And I guess maybe it is like more of a mind over the situation kind of thing, where if you sit down and with your pen, with your notebook, and just get 2 verses out, you can figure something out. You can make something happen out of that. And it's a strange place. I'm like you, Rudy. If I'm struck by something and I feel it real strongly, like I will go to the notebook and get something written down right away, and I'll get the song done within.
Exactly, and that's usually how I think my best work has
Short
come
time.
like that. When
Right.
the inspiration
Me
comes,
too.
and you have the time right then at the moment to finish the song. Because what I've seen is if I get the little nugget down and I don't have time to work
Right.
it up, years go by.
Right. But you could also like pull, like I do. I pulled like the little threads together and made some sort of semblance of a song out of the little threads of lyrics I had here and there. You can make a Frankenstein song. That's what I called that. When I pulled everything together, the 2 different sets of lyrics that never got done into a song, and I call it my Frankenstein song.
Well, that Endless Arkansas, I think I finally have it finished now. I think I was telling you that the other day. I did that because there was a song that I used to play, and I think you and I may have played it a couple of times, that Johnny Rodriguez did, called I Couldn't Be Me Without You.
Yeah,
Okay.
we played that.
And I added a verse to that song because I wanted to turn that into a male part and a female part, and the song only had 1 verse. And so, anyway, I took a portion of that and finished Endless Arkansas.
Oh, perfect.
Because I didn't feel like I was stealing it from anybody.
No,
That's
you,
right.
You
You
already
know?
wrote it once. You wrote it once. Do you have songwriters that you like? Like, you like their craft, you like their tunes, and do you have like, just a couple, 3, 4 names off the top of your head that you really
Yeah, man, right now I'm really into Jason Isbell.
cool?
That dude has got some really good stuff.
Yeah, he's amazing.
What about you?
Yeah, I have so many. What's funny is the people that I listened to growing up, like I'm a huge Jethro Tull fan, and I love Ian Anderson's voice, and I love that Celtic style. And so some of my stuff is sort of influenced by that. I've been told over and over that my stuff sounds Celtic, which is not intentional, and I'm not even sure I agree, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. But my stuff seems to be a little more like Jason Isbell, and that folk. I definitely kind of came from Simon and Garfunkel, and that folk background. So my songs are more like that, even though I was definitely listening to, and really I love rock and roll.
Right.
But I like the acoustic side of it. That's what I loved about Jethro Tull. Ian Anderson is an acoustic player in a rock and roll band. He plays acoustic guitar and he plays flute, and so it's an interesting mix. But when you hear his solo stuff, it's pretty much all acoustic.
Right. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to dig some of that out on the YouTubes.
Yeah,
see what
it's
I can
amazing.
dial up and check out. I have so many songwriters. I don't even know where to start. I started getting into bluegrass music in the 90s, I guess, at some point, and I got deep into it, and I'm just really into the bluegrass style, and a lot of those songs are just old traditional songs that the Carter family found and dug out of the mountains and would come and bring them to record, and they were kind of like the first musicologists of mountain music, and so I'm into all of the old bluegrass stuff, and I really like new bluegrass stuff, and I was a huge Moody Blues fan for a long time as a teenager, and
I love the Moody Blues.
I know. So those are kind of like my big influence. And Joni Mitchell, I loved her, and I love show tunes and standards, jazz standards. So, and choir music. In fact, Mark and I were talking about being choristers earlier.
That's right. Yeah, we were both big choir kids.
Yeah.
I think that's where we got the harmony, our love of harmonies.
Absolutely. So the things that surprised me about getting into songwriting after like having so many people that I love. Oh yeah, I love Sheryl Crow too. I think she's a genius songwriter and just being a musician all around. I think that I was really surprised by playing in a band. I never thought I'd play in a band. So I never thought that that would ever be a thing.
Yeah, I never thought so. I had never played with anybody aside from just a friend here who played. You know,
Right.
he would play and we'd do stuff together. But he lives up in Albuquerque, and we were never gonna do anything together band wise. But when I met Rudy, I thought, wow, this could be cool because we kind of like the same stuff. I
Right.
really liked his stuff, and he seemed to like my stuff, and then it was just a matter of, is this going to even work, you know, time-wise? Are we going to be able to hang out and do stuff? And I've known other guys who are really flighty and unreliable, and I thought, oh, God, I hope it's not like that, because you try to do something and it falls apart, and, you know, but
You
it's
can't,
worked out
right.
amazingly. Yeah. It's
You
just
send a
been-
text and you're like, are we practicing? And there's crickets.
Yeah.
You know, you never hear anything. Yeah, that was the cool thing about when I finally met Rudy at the very, very tail end of 2015, and we started playing music together early 2016. I was reluctant to get pulled into another musician's sphere at that time because I had just kind of lost 2 bands all in one fell swoop in the previous months, and I thought, you know what, I don't know if this is worth getting involved with people anymore because, you know, it's just so strange. But really it's the quality of the person that you choose to like work with, because it makes all the difference in the world. You know, if somebody's there for practice, great. If they're into your songs, great. Another cool thing about being in a band with Rudy was that, and his friend Randy, who drugged me into all this, thank you, Randy Carr, was that they printed out the lyric sheet with the chord changes over the lyrics, and I'd never been in a band that kind of did that before, you know, and everybody had a copy. And that makes things so easy to, you know, hey, and it also makes me appreciate your songwriting efforts, because then I can see your lyrics, and then I can see how you chose the chords and where everything goes with when you're singing the melody, and it's kind of a cool thing, and it's kind of like a glimpse. When I see this lyric sheet with the chords, it's like a glimpse into your minds.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a super cool thing.
I did. I showed up one night and I had 4 black notebooks.
Yes.
All right.
I had one for everybody.
I didn't fight it, man. I was all about it. I was
Well,
like,
that's how
yeah,
I
this
learned
is,
to
this
play.
is the way to do this.
Yeah, that's
You
how I
learn them
learned.
that like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's how I learned to play, and that's how I still, when I did Stone Blind Horses, I had never heard that song, but I had a guitar magazine and it had the lyrics and the chords, and I just either was too lazy or wasn't, I don't know what it was. I didn't want to go and seek that song out, so I just did it the way I would do it if I had written it, and I used his chords and his lyrics. But I had no idea if the timing was right. I had no idea, you know, if I was actually doing the melody that he does, which I'm not really. It's close. It's sort of, I've heard it now. But yeah, that was fun. Kind of almost an experiment, you know, to see what that song would have been like, you know, say if I had written it and how different it is from his. And so that was a fun thing to put together.
It's one of my favorite cover songs that we do. I'm so grateful to have met you and started doing your music, because I love your songs, but I also love the covers that you bring to like the table. Like, we're gonna do this one.
I'm the cover king.
I like it. I don't know. I think you're a fine songwriter in your own right. So if there's any advice, like this is going to wrap this up, if there's any last minute advice for aspiring songwriters out there, what would it be, Rudy?
Write regardless, I guess. I mean,
Right.
that's the lesson I'm having to learn. Is like Mark said, sometimes if you just have to force it, do
Yeah.
it. But always listen to the muse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get that urge, get up. You know, I'm terrible. If I hear something laying in my bed and I don't get up, dang it.
And the second thing is listen to good music. You know,
Right.
one of the biggest pieces of advice I hear established authors tell young authors, aspiring authors, is read good literature.
Right.
And the same goes for music. Listen to good music. Well, listen to well-written music. Seek it out, because it's not on the radio.
Right.
You have to go find it.
Yeah, and that's
right.
that's where the covers came in for me. I think when you're first starting out, one, it helps you become a better player. Learn a bunch of covers. I mean, I learned probably 30 covers before I started really
Me too.
getting serious about songwriting. But then
Right.
you see how they're put together, and you get ideas and you get influences, and that's what I like about a good cover. I am more likely, though, to take Tom Petty, I do it all the time. the songs I do by him don't sound anything like his versions, and that's also fun. You know, you do it
Do
kind of
your
your own way, and that's a fun thing to do. But yeah, if you listen to good music and you play,
And then learn that good music.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that's the second essential step.
yeah. And the other thing I think I would tell songwriters, if you are writing something, don't be afraid to, if it sounds dumb, if it doesn't make sense, whatever, just write it down. Get it down. You can change it later. You can always edit it. And so that's one of those things where if you don't write it down, then there's nothing to work with.
Right.
So
You just
don't be
get
afraid.
something on the
Don't be
paper.
afraid of it.
Or, you know, like Rudy was telling me the other day, he likes to use the record button on his phone too. If you get something in your head, just hurry, get your phone and do it and hit record. And that's my thing. It's like I just keep my notebook nearby, and if something's in my head, I'll just write it down real quick. I'm a lot like Rudy. I'm a feels songwriter. If I feel it, I gotta get down. And if you feel something, immediately sit down and get it down on paper.
Yep.
Well, I guess that's it for the premiere episode of this chit-chatting about songwriting. Thank you, Rudy Wood and Mark Bolinger, so much for letting me play music with you and talk to you about songwriting.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks. Been fun.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks for listening in to the premiere episode of Julia Rambles. Our bumper music today was provided by Mark Bolinger, performing his song Ghost Train with Three Rivers, and Rudy Wood performing his song This Guitar with Three Rivers. Thanks again, and we hope to ramble along with you soon.
My folks bought me this guitar the year I turned 16. I played it till my fingers hurt, and I never tuned the strings with 3 chords and a rhythm, strummed in 4/4 time. I'd play songs to all the fans at the road shows in my mind, and we'd play Fire on the Mountain, we'd play Fox on the Run, pick the Wildwood Flower and House of the Rising Sun. At church on Sunday mornings, we'd sing Amazing Grace, just a closer walk with me and I.